Billionaires are quietly fleeing this coastal paradise in the dead of night, leaving behind a terrifying, lawless ghost town. The ultimate American dream was a beautifully packaged lie. Watch until the very end, because the catastrophic contagion that destroyed this wealthy sanctuary is already coming for your hometown. Close your eyes for a second and picture the ultimate American dream. You are probably seeing the sun-drenched coastline of Santa Monica, the iconic Ferris wheel glowing against a Pacific sunset, pristine beaches, and a lifestyle so perfect it feels scripted. For decades, this exact zip code was the crown jewel of the West Coast. It was the undisputed sanctuary where the world's elite parked their generational wealth, where visionary entrepreneurs built retail empires, and where the promise of California felt completely invincible. But what if I told you that the breathtaking image in your head is nothing but a phantom? You have been sold a lie. A meticulously crafted, brilliantly marketed, horribly expensive Hollywood-produced lie that hides a reality so dark and disturbing it will fundamentally shatter your perception of wealth and security. Wake up, because the paradise you thought you knew is bleeding out in broad daylight. The smooth coastal pop music of the tourism commercials has been violently drowned out by the endless, exhausting wail of police sirens and the sickening crash of shattered glass from brazen smash-and-grab robberies happening while the sun is still high in the sky. You look for the million-dollar ocean views, only to find them suffocated by massive, dystopian encampments of ragged tents stretching block after block. You see small business owners, the absolute backbone of this local economy, standing in front of boarded-up storefronts with tears in their eyes, utterly abandoned by the very system they paid into. Money Glow Up '02 welcomes you to the front lines of a financial and societal collapse that the establishment desperately does not want you to see. Before we pull back the curtain and expose the raw, terrifying mechanics of how this wealthy playground was allowed to rot from the inside out, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now to support the channel. Your subscription is the only fuel that allows us to keep stepping into these dangerous realities, bypassing the mainstream media filter and bringing you the hardcore, unfiltered truth. What you are witnessing on these broken streets is not a random streak of misfortune or a temporary economic downturn. This is a calculated, systemic collapse. I am standing here, breathing in the ocean air that now mixes with the scent of urban decay, to show you the fatal consequences of toxic macro policies, unchecked criminal ecosystems, and catastrophic financial delusions. We are going to strip away the politics and look strictly at the harsh reality of the numbers, because if you do not understand the blueprint of this disaster, your hard-earned money might just be the next sacrifice thrown into a beautifully packaged trap. To truly grasp how this beautifully packaged trap was sprung, we first have to walk down what used to be the most lucrative stretch of retail real estate in the entire country. I am talking about the Third Street Promenade, a place that once pulsed with an electric, undeniable energy, serving as the ultimate cathedral of American consumerism. Just a few years ago, you could not walk a straight line here without bumping into tourists loaded down with shopping bags from high-end boutiques, street performers drawing massive crowds, and investors eagerly calculating the sky-high per-square-foot revenue. Today, walking these same blocks feels like wandering through the eerie, quiet aftermath of an economic apocalypse. The silence is deafening. Block after block, the vibrant storefronts that once defined prestige have been replaced by endless rows of cheap plywood and faded "for lease" signs flapping in the ocean breeze. The elite brands, the anchor tenants that once proudly stamped Santa Monica on their corporate letterheads, have quietly packed up their merchandise in the dead of night and fled. But the true heartbreak does not lie in the departure of corporate giants. It lies in the decimation of the independent merchants. I stood outside a boarded-up diner that had survived recessions and earthquakes, only to be utterly broken by the current climate. These mom-and-pop owners poured their life savings, their sweat, and their family legacies into a community that ultimately turned its back on them. They were bled dry by skyrocketing commercial rents and crippling local regulations, all while their foot traffic vanished, terrified away by the grim reality waiting outside their doors. The local government continued to demand its exorbitant pound of flesh in taxes and fees, offering absolutely nothing in return as the streets deteriorated into lawlessness. What we are witnessing is the rapid, brutal unwinding of a local economy, a massive flight of capital where wealth is abandoning the sinking ship, leaving behind a hollowed-out shell of a community that looks more like a ghost town than a billionaire's playground. But these businesses did not just pack up and flee because of shifting consumer habits or a natural economic cycle. They ran for their lives because the basic, unspoken social contract of public safety was completely shredded before their eyes. When you live in a society that normalizes chaos, the concept of a thriving community becomes impossible. I want you to feel the palpable anxiety that now dictates daily life here. Residents who pay property taxes that would buy mansions in other states are now functioning like prisoners in their own luxury zip codes. They check neighborhood watch apps with the same frantic frequency that Wall Street traders check stock tickers. The reality on the pavement is that organized, brazen smash-and-grab crews have turned local boutiques into their own personal, penalty-free warehouses. Thieves walk into stores with trash bags, sweep the shelves clean under the glare of security cameras, and simply stroll out, knowing full well that no one will stop them. The local police, demoralized and entirely stripped of their authority by disastrous state legislation, are forced to act as mere spectators to this rampant pillaging. And then there is the humanitarian crisis bleeding out onto the sidewalks. The parks where children used to play are now entirely consumed by sprawling, hazardous encampments. Walking to the grocery store means navigating a gauntlet of untreated severe mental illness, aggressive addiction, and biological hazards. Families are abandoning their evening strolls down the boardwalk because the risk of a random, unprovoked assault is simply too high. You can see the exhaustion etched into the faces of the locals. It is the deep, spiritual fatigue of people who realize that the authorities meant to protect them have effectively surrendered the streets to the highest level of dysfunction. They have been forced to accept an unthinkable new normal where extreme wealth and profound, unchecked despair exist inches apart, separated only by a pane of shatterproof glass that is tested entirely too often. You cannot help but look at this staggering level of human and economic devastation and ask how the authorities allowed this to happen. Which brings us to the most infuriating part of this story: the deliberate, calculated policy failures. This collapse was not an accident. It was legislated into existence. We have to look past the political theater and examine the cold, hard mechanics of civic suicide. In an absolutely misguided attempt at criminal justice reform, state and local lawmakers fundamentally altered the risk-reward ratio for criminal behavior. By effectively decriminalizing property theft under a certain dollar amount and implementing disastrous catch-and-release bail policies, they inadvertently created a massive, highly lucrative incentive structure for organized retail crime. It is pure, brutal economics. If there is zero cost or consequence to stealing, the supply of thieves will infinitely expand. But the systemic betrayal runs much deeper than just the penal code. The local governance structure has transformed into an insatiable machine that aggressively penalizes productivity while heavily subsidizing destructive behavior. Business owners are crushed under the weight of astronomical permitting fees, endless bureaucratic red tape, and punitive taxes, only to watch those funds squandered on a homeless industrial complex that spends billions of dollars, yet somehow makes the crisis visibly worse every single year. The money simply vanishes into an opaque web of non-profits and consultants, while the tents continue to multiply on the sidewalks. It is a stunning display of capital misallocation that would bankrupt any private corporation in a matter of months. The politicians continue to stand at their podiums, looking directly into the cameras, and insist that the economy is thriving and the streets are safe, demanding that you deny the very reality your own eyes are showing you. This is what happens when ideology completely blinds a government to fundamental economic truths and basic human behavior. The system eats itself from the inside out. Understanding the mechanics of how Santa Monica fell is not just an exercise in California bashing or disaster tourism. It is a desperate, flashing red warning, because the toxic policies that destroyed this paradise are already being exported to a city near you. What you are seeing here is the canary in the coal mine for the broader American economy. When the rule of law breaks down and property rights are no longer enforced, capital flight is not just probable, it is an absolute mathematical certainty. Money goes where it is treated best, and right now, the smart money is quietly exiting the stage, leaving the middle class holding the bag for a collapsing tax base. As viewers of Money Glow Up 02, you need to recognize this contagion for what it is. You can no longer rely on the reputation of a zip code or the historical stability of a real estate market to protect your hard-earned wealth. You have to become relentlessly proactive. This means diversifying your assets away from jurisdictions that are actively hostile to capital, understanding the incredible value of mobility, and learning to separate the comforting lies of mainstream economic reporting from the harsh, undeniable realities on the ground. You must build your financial fortress with the understanding that the institutions you thought were unshakable are far more fragile than they appear. The illusion of the Hollywood ending is over, and the credits are rolling on this era of unchecked municipal arrogance. The question is no longer if this systemic rot will spread, but rather, are you financially and mentally prepared for when it arrives at your doorstep? Thank you for walking through the fire with me today. Keep your eyes wide open, protect your capital, and I will see you in the next reality check. The tragic transformation of Santa Monica's Third Street Promenade from a vibrant retail mecca into a boarded-up ghost town is not merely a localized tragedy. It is a glaring indictment of systemic policy failures. What we are witnessing is the direct consequence of abandoning the fundamental social contract of public safety and replacing it with disastrous legislative experiments. When local governments heavily penalize productivity through astronomical taxes and bureaucratic red tape, while simultaneously decriminalizing theft and subsidizing destructive behavior, the economic results are mathematically predictable. The unchecked rise in retail crime, coupled with a staggering humanitarian crisis on the streets, has forced both corporate giants and generational mom-and-pop shops to flee for their survival. This mass exodus of businesses and residents creates a catastrophic vacuum, eroding the tax base and leaving a hollowed-out community in its wake. Most importantly, this decay is highly contagious. The ideological blindness that destroyed this coastal paradise is slowly creeping into other municipalities nationwide. As capital naturally flows away from hostile environments toward places where property rights and the rule of law are respected, the middle class is left to shoulder the burden of a collapsing system. Ultimately, the story of Santa Monica serves as a stark, flashing warning for the rest of the country. Economic stability is entirely dependent on civic order, and no zip code, no matter how affluent or historically prestigious, is immune to the devastating effects of municipal mismanagement. Wealth, prestige, and economic stability are not permanent fixtures. They are incredibly fragile ecosystems held together by the rule of law, basic public safety, and sound economic policy. When a government prioritizes ideological experiments over the protection of property rights and its citizens, even the most affluent communities can collapse at stunning speed. The illusion of geographical safety is dead. You cannot rely on the historical reputation of a city to protect your future or your capital. Do not tie all your wealth, real estate, or business operations to a single municipality or state. Spread your assets across jurisdictions that are fundamentally friendly to capital and strictly enforce the rule of law. Maintain a flexible financial setup. Keep a portion of your assets highly liquid and ensure your primary skills or business operations can be easily relocated if your local environment begins to rapidly deteriorate. Stop taking mainstream economic reports or political assurances at face value. Pay attention to the ground reality in your own neighborhood. Actively track local crime trends, commercial vacancy rates, and shifting tax policies so you can anticipate a decline and exit before the trap springs shut. Have you noticed any signs of these economic or safety shifts happening in your own city or neighborhood? Please take a moment to share your thoughts and observations in the comments below, so we can all learn from each other's local perspectives. If you found this reality check valuable, please hit that subscribe button to support Money Glow Up 02. Your support gives us the motivation to keep uncovering the truth and bringing you more high-impact financial content.